The Season 5, Episode 3 of The Chosen, we're not just watching a man get tired, we're watching the weight of the world press down on Jesus like never before. This isn't just another teaching moment. This is the beginning of the end. And it hurts. The calm before the collapse. There's a moment in this episode that almost slips past you, not because it's unimportant, but because it's quiet. Still, like the air before a storm. Jesus has just walked out of the temple after confronting the religious leaders in the most intense public rebuke we've seen from him. And now, silence. He doesn't say much. He just walks. The camera doesn't need to say it, you can feel it. The weight, the sorrow, the pressure. This isn't the joyful teacher who turned water into wine. This isn't the miracle worker who healed blind men and fed thousands. This is a man who knows exactly what's coming, and it's not just physical pain. It's betrayal. It's abandonment. It's spiritual agony. And the disciples, they're still not getting it. James, still hopeful, still in denial, tries to rationalize Jesus' final public teaching. He didn't really mean that was the last one, right? And you can feel the tension, like watching someone deny a funeral is about to happen. Meanwhile, John is the only one quietly accepting it, urging James to stop pushing. But even he doesn't fully understand. No one does. Not yet. The audience does, though. We've read the story. We know the cross is coming. But what's genius about this episode is how it lets us feel the slow, crushing process. This isn't sudden. It's step by step, word by word, thought by thought. And it starts here in the space between confrontation and collapse. The sun is setting. The disciples are walking away from the temple. And the words Jesus spoke hang heavy in the air. The temple will fall. The end is near. Everything they've known is about to be shaken. But here's the twist. It's not just about physical buildings or Roman oppression. It's about something deeper. Spiritual collapse. A divine heartbreak. And Jesus is at the center of it. When they ask him, "What did you mean by desolate?" He doesn't comfort them with soft answers. He doubles down. The signs of the end. The chaos to come. False teachers. Global conflict. Betrayals. And you can hear it in his voice. Not fear, but heaviness. The kind of sorrow that only someone who sees the full picture could carry. Let's not forget what Jesus is actually doing here. He's preparing them and us for the unimaginable. Not just his own death, but the unraveling of everything comfortable. And here's where it gets really real. Jesus isn't crushed by nails or whips yet. He's crushed by knowledge. The knowledge that even after all this, so many will still walk away. So many will still be led astray. So many will miss it. This is emotional agony before physical agony, and that's honestly harder to watch. And can we talk about the geography for a second? The disciples exit through the eastern gate or possibly the northern. The show doesn't make it super clear. They circle around toward the Mount of Olives. It's a quiet walk, but it's loaded. Because this exact mountain is where prophecy says the Messiah will stand again at the end of all things. And here, he is already bearing the weight of what's coming. There's this one line I can't shake. As the disciples try to understand, someone says, "They all recognize us now." It seems casual, almost like a throwaway line. But it's not. It's a warning. Fame is no longer a blessing. It's a target. Everyone knows who they are now, and that means the opposition is about to get louder. The consequence is more permanent. There's no hiding anymore. That's part of what makes this episode so crushing. It's not one moment that breaks Jesus. It's all of it. The mounting pressure, the fading time, the oblivious friends, the prophecies being fulfilled in real time, and the hearts that still won't understand. And just when you think it can't get any heavier, Jesus sits down, not to rest, but to reveal a prophecy that hurts to hear. As Jesus takes his seat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples close in around him, still shaken from what just happened at the temple. And then they ask the question we all would have asked, when will this all happen? It's honest. It's human. It's that desperate kind of question people ask when their whole world feels like it's about to fall apart. And in this moment, Jesus doesn't comfort them with vague metaphors or parables. No, he goes straight into one of the most direct and unsettling teachings of his entire ministry. This is known as the Olivet Discourse, a prophecy that doesn't just reveal the future, it disrupts the present. He begins with a warning. See that no one leads you astray. Right off the bat, we're not eased into anything. He opens with deception. And what's haunting is that he's not talking about violent armies or governments yet. He's talking about people pretending to be him. People claiming to carry his truth, using his name, twisting it for their own agenda. And when you realize how true that still is today, it hits different. Because we're living in a world full of counterfeits, full of voices yelling, "Follow me," but leading people straight into confusion, fear, and spiritual fog. That's not new. Jesus saw it coming, and he grieved it. But then it escalates. Jesus says there will be wars, and rumors of wars, and again, he tells them not to be alarmed, which feels almost cruel at first. Like, how are we not supposed to be alarmed by war? How are we supposed to just hear about destruction and not flinch? But what he's really saying here is bigger. He's reminding them that panic doesn't stop prophecy. Worry doesn't delay what's inevitable. This isn't Jesus being heartless. This is him anchoring his people in the middle of chaos. He's saying, I know what's coming. I see all of it. And I'm still telling you, don't be afraid. And for us today, that is so needed. Because the truth is, we're hearing those same rumors right now, in the news, on social media, in our own cities. Conflict is rising. Fear is spreading. But Jesus already spoke into that thousands of years ago, and his voice still echoes. Do not be alarmed. That doesn't mean ignore the pain. It means don't let it define your peace. But it doesn't stop there. Jesus continues, nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, famines, earthquakes, all in various places. And he says, these are the beginning of birth pains. That phrase is so important, birth pains, because pain without purpose is torment. But pain that leads to something, that's labor. That's something new being born. So what Jesus is doing here is flipping the narrative. He's saying, yes, it's going to hurt. Yes, the world will tremble, but something is coming on the other side of it. Something better, something eternal. And it's hard to hear because we want victory without struggle. We want clarity without confusion. But Jesus is making it clear. Before resurrection, there's going to be a crushing. And then he turns it personal. He stops talking about nations and earthquakes and starts talking about them. The disciples. Us. They will deliver you up to tribulation, he says. You will be hated for my name's sake. That's not metaphor. That's not abstract. That's real. And if you've ever been mocked, excluded, or judged because of your faith, you felt the beginning of what he's talking about here. Jesus isn't sugarcoating it. Following him means walking a hard road. It means losing people, losing comfort, maybe even losing your life. And you can tell the disciples are stunned. This isn't the kingdom they expected. This isn't the revolution they signed up for. They thought the Messiah was coming to crush Rome, not to be crushed by the system. And yet, here's Jesus, not just predicting pain, but accepting it. One line here sticks out hard. Many will fall away. That's not just a prophecy about the future that's heartbreak. That's Jesus looking into the eyes of his closest friends, knowing even some of them will scatter. That's him seeing churches that will drift, believers that will deconstruct, people that will let the world drown out his voice. And yet, he still speaks with love, still offers truth, still prepares them. That's what makes this moment so deeply emotional. He's crushed not because of what's happening to him, but because of what will happen around him. He's carrying the weight of human confusion, the betrayal of those he came to save. And yet, he never stops pressing forward. Even now, as the skies darken, as the disciples grow more anxious, Jesus doesn't retreat. He doesn't pull back. He leans in, not with rage, not with force, but with truth. And the most mind-blowing part, he's doing all of this while knowing that even after explaining the signs, even after laying out the timeline, even after speaking clearly, people still won't believe. People will still be led astray. The breaking point before the cross. This is the turning point. The moment when the crushing weight of what's coming doesn't just hang over Jesus, it presses into him. And yet, he keeps speaking. With every word, he's revealing not just the signs of the times, but the cost of what's about to happen. It's no longer just about the destruction of the temple, or the political chaos, or even false messiahs. It's now about the heart. Jesus turns his gaze even deeper and says something devastating. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. That line is like a knife, because he's not just talking about the world out there, he's talking about the people closest to the truth. Followers, believers, disciples, us. And what crushes him isn't just that there will be suffering or betrayal, it's that love itself will start to die. Think about that. The very thing Jesus came to restore love will start to fade out in the hearts of people who once claimed to follow him. That's more than sad. That's soul-breaking, because it means the enemy won't just come from outside, he'll come from within, through bitterness, division, pride, and silence. And that's exactly how love grows cold, not all at once, but gradually, quietly, until it disappears completely. And yet, in that same breath, he gives a lifeline. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. There it is, the pulse, the heartbeat, the hope. It's faint, but it's there. And this is where we start to see the real weight Jesus is carrying. Not just the fear of what's coming, but the urgency of getting this message out before it's too late. That's why he's pushing the disciples to listen, to truly hear him, even though their minds are fogged with questions and fear. Because he knows this is it. The countdown has started. And you can see the tension on his face, the kind of tension that doesn't come from a physical burden, but a spiritual one. It's not the cross yet, but it's the shadow of it. It's the emotional version of Gethsemane. And what's wild is that while the disciples are just starting to wrestle with the idea of the end times, Jesus is already feeling the crushing sorrow of their future confusion, their pain, their loss. And still, he teaches. Still, he pours himself out. There's a moment here, blink and you'll miss it, where Peter looks at Jesus and realizes he's somewhere else. Not physically, but mentally, spiritually. You can tell that Jesus isn't just teaching. He's feeling the weight of prophecy. He's thinking about every soul who will be led astray, every family torn apart, every believer who will question their faith in the middle of war and famine and fear. And you start to realize this isn't just a warning. It's a heartbreak. It's Jesus grieving in advance for the generations to come. And there's something so crushing about that, because most of us think of grief as something that comes after loss. But here, Jesus is grieving before it happens. That's what makes him different. That's what makes him divine. He's not bound by time. He feels the sorrow of tomorrow today, and he chooses to carry it. Then comes the shocking twist. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. That's not just a prophecy. That's a declaration, a mission, a guarantee. Despite all the crushing, all the cold love, all the deception and death, the gospel will go out. And Jesus is saying it here, not with thunder or flashing lights, but with certainty. And that's when you feel the hope break through the tension. Yes, he's crushed. Yes, he's overwhelmed. But he's not defeated. This is the strength of Jesus on full display, not in miracles or power, but in resolve, in endurance, in being willing to walk a road where almost no one will follow him, and still walking it. And then, almost silently, we feel the shift. He knows his time is running out. Public teaching is over. The miracles have been seen. The warnings have been given. Now it's just a matter of time. And that's when you feel the full emotional weight of what's happening. Jesus isn't being crushed by circumstances. He's being crushed by purpose. This is what Isaiah meant when he said the Messiah would be a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. It's happening right here, not on a cross, not in front of a crowd, but in the quiet of a mountain, with the sun setting behind him and the future pressing in like a storm. And as the disciples sit in confusion, trying to understand, Jesus already knows what's coming. The betrayal, the silence, the agony, the cross. But he doesn't run. He doesn't hide. He stays. He teaches. He warns. He loves. That's what makes this moment so powerful. It's not about fear. It's not about control. It's about truth and love and being willing to carry the full weight of a broken world on your shoulders, even when no one else sees it. Jesus is crushed, not by defeat, but by devotion. Crushed, but not broken. the king's silent resolve. And now we arrive at the quietest moment yet. Somehow, it hits the loudest. This is where everything slows down. The words have been spoken. The warnings have been given. The disciples are left with more questions than answers. But Jesus, he sits in stillness, not because he's out of things to say, but because he has already said enough. And now, the crushing isn't about pain, it's about acceptance. You can almost feel the weight of surrender settling onto him like a cloak. This is the heavy silence before Gethsemane. This is the soul-deep ache that doesn't come with tears, but with resolve. And that's what's so breathtaking about this moment. Jesus doesn't collapse under pressure. He chooses to carry it. Every prophecy, every betrayal, every lash of the whip, and every nail of the cross, they already exist in his mind. And yet, he presses on. He's not fighting fate. He's walking straight into it. What makes this episode so uniquely powerful is how it strips away the noise. No crowd miracles, no dramatic signs, just Jesus, worn down but unwavering. His body isn't broken yet, but you can tell his heart is already being pierced by the blindness of the people he came to save, by the stubbornness of the disciples who still don't understand, and by the crushing knowledge that this is the end of public ministry, the final moments where he could speak openly to the world before the storm takes him. And the storm is coming. Fast. You can see it in the darkened skies. You can feel it in the way the disciples fumble through their emotions, scared, unsure, clinging to half-truths and fragments of faith. And Jesus is quietly preparing for the cross. Not by force, but by choice. He could have stopped. He could have turned back. He could have chosen comfort. But instead, he lets himself be crushed under the full weight of the mission. And that's where the power is. Not in escaping suffering, but in embracing it for the sake of others. For us, there's this incredibly human detail tucked into all of this. The way Jesus looks at his disciples, not with frustration, but with sorrow. He knows they won't last the night. He knows Peter will deny him. He knows Judas has already made his decision. And still, he loves them. Still he teaches. Still he stays. That kind of love, that unwavering, heart-pouring, soul-crushing love, is what makes Jesus so much more than just a wise teacher or a spiritual leader. He is the sacrifice. He is the fulfillment. He is the lamb who sees the knife coming and still steps forward. And that's why this moment matters. That's why it lingers in your mind long after the episode ends. Because we don't just see Jesus crushed by the weight of prophecy, we see him transformed by it. Not weakened, but focused. Not defeated, but prepared. And if we're honest, this moment forces us to ask a hard question. Would we follow him still? If he stopped doing miracles? If he stopped preaching in crowds? If he just walked a lonely road towards suffering, would we still follow? Because this is the test, not just for the disciples, but for us. Will we follow the king when the crown disappears, and all that's left is the cross? Will we endure when love grows cold, when the world turns dark, when it feels like God is silent? Jesus is crushed, but he is not broken. And this is the divine paradox of it all. In the world's eyes, this looks like a loss, the end of public influence, the beginning of betrayal. But in heaven's eyes, this is the moment of greatest power. This is where redemption starts, not with a throne, but with surrender. Not with dominance, but with obedience. And in this deep dive, we see the truth behind the episode's title. Jesus isn't crushed by defeat. He is crushed for us, willingly, silently, faithfully. And he's not asking us to carry what he carried. He's just asking us to trust him, to hold on, to stay awake, to endure to the end. Because even in the crushing, he is still the Christ. Even in silence, he is still speaking. And even in sorrow, he is still saving. That's the deep dive, not into just a scene or a storyline, but into the soul of the Savior. This isn't about emotional drama. It's about divine love, so deep, so fierce, and so unwavering, it allowed itself to be crushed, just to save the very